I'm super excited to bring to you the AIA Austin Homes Tour for 2025. It's on the weekend of the 25th and the 26th of October. If you're coming to Austin or you live in Austin and you love architecture, this is a tour you shouldn't miss. Now, if you want to listen to this series on the podcast or watch it on YouTube, please do, and understand that I have each of the architects presenting the homes that they have on the tour this year. So there's 10 architects, plus I have Rob Gomez and Ingrid Spencer, who are also commenting on these homes. Now, Rob has photographed every one of them, and Ingrid is the director of the AIA Austin. These two are super knowledgeable and add really beautiful insight to what these homes are about from observers who aren't architects. So please tune in, listen, ask comments, and book a ticket and come on tour and see each of these homes over the weekend, 25th, 26th of October 2025. Look forward to seeing you there. So Scott, I'm super excited to have you here with the Austin Homes Tour this year and taking us through Stealth House. Now, before we do that, can you just give me a little bit of a bio on who is Scott, what do you guys do, and why do you do it so well?
Sure, thank you, and be glad to. So, yeah, I've been in this business a long time. So, I've been practiced for almost 30 years now, which is kind of incredible. I got my start in working in New York City and had a small practice there, where we started out doing like renovations of brownstones, and sometimes it was a kitchen and bath kind of thing. And we became known for doing, this was during the dot-com boom back in the 1990s, early 2000s. We got known for doing office spaces for these small companies on a nothing budget. So we would do $25 a square foot, office spaces by finding, scrap shelves in warehouse spaces they were clearing out and things like that. So really built the practice from that and came to Austin about 15 years ago or so, and started the practice here. And for a while, I was running both back and forth. And now we're focusing more on creating a base in Austin. I have a partner now, Jacob Novak, and we've been practicing together for a very long time, like 10 years, but made it official partnership along with Travis Power, a couple of years ago. So that's where we are, and we do a little of everything. It depends on where the economy goes. We did residential for a while, then we did lots of office spaces when that was taking off. Then we did, right now it's a blend, but it's mostly residential and a little office space and some commercial stuff thrown in.
So I also remember having you on the podcast quite a few years ago, and you were doing skyscraper stuff as well, like big buildings.
Yeah, that was for Cohn Patterson Fox when I was in New York before starting my own practice. So this was really a long time ago. So we did one building in Sydney and worked on one in Jakarta and one in New York as well. So that was a good intro to architecture, working in a big firm like that.
Yeah, certainly around structures, and not physical structures, but structures of business and those kinds of things, seeing how a big firm works. But also that thing of being able to understand architecture from all those angles certainly makes a difference to how you approach, even when you come down to a small place or a larger home, because you've got so many different ways that people have occupied or lived buildings.
Right.
And I think that that's a real bonus that you can bring in, that a lot of architects maybe only have ever done residential homes.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting and super different. I mean, you always hear of these architecture firms, they always have three letters in their name, like KPF. Well, one guy, Gene Cohn in that case, was the marketing guy. So he was very slick and had, knew everybody and told a good joke. And then you had Bill Patterson, who was the designer. And then you had Shelley Fox, who was the business operations person. You always see why it works out as three names.
Yeah,
they kind
right.
of fit together. So seeing that from, on a big scale was very helpful. When you get put on a skyscraper job, though, you get pigeonholed into a tiny little area. Like I was on core design. So you're working with the structure and trying to fit elevators and mechanical equipment and all that stuff in this tiny area. It's a very different world than being a designer of homes.
Yeah.
But interesting in its own way.
Oh, but you don't forget to put the air conditioning in a home when you've done core
No.
design in a skyscraper.
It makes you more aware of that because you're working with inches and packing things in this core, and in a home it can be just as important. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Well, with Stealth House, I'd love you to take us through probably from the site and then from the site through to the brief. And then I'd like you to actually walk us through as if we were on tour. So a bit of the brief, I think, is a really important thing because as a designer myself, I get this thing when, we do something odd, and people say, what? Well, they don't understand. Or they'll go, why'd you do
Right.
that? I go, well, actually, it was client request. So this is how we took the client request and made it into what was right for them. And that might not be right for you, but then you've probably got some crazy stuff of your own that you would like. And
Yeah.
that's part of how design responds to humans, is we,
Well,
especially on an individual basis.
I always feel bad about criticizing any building, no matter how bad, because you really don't know how much of that craziness was driven by a client insisting on certain things. So
Yeah.
I always feel a little sympathy for bad buildings in some ways.
Yeah.
But
And odd architecture, sometimes you don't get the layout and you go, when you find out the brief, you go, oh, this is because of this. This was
yeah,
something they required, and you go, oh, okay. Well, now it all makes sense to you.
right.
So I really like to do the client brief. I've seen the photographs of this home, and I don't think that there's anything odd looking in it. But take me from that first point of the job, how you got the job, and then the client brief for that.
Well, this is an interesting one because it's my own house for my wife and I. So
Oh,
uh,
get your wife on the line.
yeah. The brief was convoluted at best, but it's an interesting story because it started with our office does, projects for money, but we also have a side bit always doing these experimental projects that aren't really meant to be built, but just to explore an idea. So we've done one called the Zero House, which is a
Hmm.
self-sufficient house. We've done a number of these things, and this started that way. So this was an idea. I remember looking when Austin was the boomtown and things were going for crazy amounts of money here. There were always these weird pieces of property that were for sale for really cheap. So like it was adjacent to a highway and had a view of a concrete wall that was against that highway and lots of noise, or something that's partially in a flood zone. And I always loved those sites and like, what could you do with that? And was very interested in it. So there came a time when I was just looking on the real estate listing site, and I saw this piece of property that was an ADU site. So in Austin, you're allowed to, if you have a large enough site, chop it up and sell off back portions of your lot, and you can actually put multiple units on a lot now. And this was what it was the backyard of another house, and it was only accessible by a unnamed gravel alley. And
Unnamed.
unnamed gravel out, and it's a very small gravel alley. You wouldn't know it's there. It's like entering the Bat Cave.
Yeah,
Honestly, you
right.
wouldn't know it was there unless you were looking for it. So, I bought the site because the price was good, but also it was in a great walking neighborhood. I mean, there is a coffee shop a block away. There's a giant grocery store 2 blocks away. It's really an ideal place to be, even though the site was kind of an odd thing. So I bought it not knowing what to do with it. And it sat for a number of years as an empty field. And it was only after I got married and thought it'd be nice to build, as an architect, you always want to build your own house at some point in your life.
Yeah.
So this seemed like a great opportunity to do that. So that's when I thought started to think, well, this idea of this sort of walled enclosure house that we've been working on as an experimental project in the office for a while, it actually works here because this site is being a backyard. On one side, you're facing the other house 10 feet away. And then on the other two sides, you're facing other houses 5 feet away because there's almost no setbacks here. There is no view from this lot. And it's a very tiny lot. It's only 3,500 square foot lot. So,
Wow.
and so it made sense that you'd want to internalize all your views.
Hmm.
And it actually plays into ideas about suburban living. It's like, the initial model for a suburban American house was taking, a ranch style house that had miles of land around it and windows were great. And then you pack them together 10 feet away. So your side windows are looking at your neighbor. Your blinds are always down. makes no sense. So I liked looking back at these older models where there were internal courtyards, but it needed to be updated for modern sense of privacy from each of the spaces. You couldn't have one big courtyard everybody looked into from their bedroom.
Yeah.
It wouldn't fly. So how do you design this thing for no exterior windows, but or work around interior courtyards that let in a lot of light and nature, but also don't look into each other? And that's
Hmm.
quite a puzzle. It's like a Rubik's Cube of how you orient the rooms and what you place them around. And what we ended up with was a plan that has two courtyards. There's one large courtyard that's kind of a central focus that the living room, dining, kitchen, all of that faces into, that has an olive tree as its center. And then there's a long strip courtyard that runs along the other side of the house that the living room also looks into, but so do the bathrooms and one of the bedrooms. So every room has natural light. Every room gets a lot of nature. You never need to put the blinds down because there are no neighbors looking in here.
Hmm.
It's acoustically very private, and we love it. It works really well. So
So
uh, we
I, I've got a question. I've got to ask this. So
sure.
this was an idea that's been sitting in your office, and your wife doesn't work in the office, does she?
No, no, she is not an architect.
So at some point, you,
Yeah.
you, you had to say to her, this idea I want to do for us.
Yes.
And she had this fleeting thought through her head. I'm going to end up with something as one of his experiments. Probably still trusts you, obviously does. And then there's a point where she went, "Hold on, this is my home." And as he hearing me, how
Yeah,
did
well,
that part go?
I think honestly we were equally scared about how this would turn out because honestly, there's always this concept of resale value in your
Mhm.
home and doing something that is neutral enough that somebody else would want it. We threw all that out the window here. So we're putting a lot of money into something that potentially would be not pleasant to live in and also not anything that anyone would want to buy. So it was a huge roll of the dice, honestly. And I wasn't sure myself, because the thought of it, of being enclosed like that and no windows and everything, it could go either way.
Yeah.
Luckily we did a lot of renderings and models and, getting a feel for what it would be like before going into construction, but it was scary all the way through. And she, was very trusting on that, she trusted I knew what I was doing. So, yeah.
She's going, so he's been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
I think he might have an idea. Well, it's an interesting thing because, like it's one thing to do it with your wife, where everything's at stake. You're going to live in your mistakes. You're going to
Right.
do all that. Then to do it with a client, and actually, you've got to hear her as well in that process because she's your
Right.
wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you take that same empathy journey or whatever, and you put that to a client, and the client probably sometimes, well, I certainly find this doesn't recognize why you're trying to get so close to them in the sense of what it's about.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Some
You
of
know,
them are sort of standing here and you're going, come on, come forward because you're going to live in this for a whole lot of years. I'm not. It's all
right.
about you at this point and this site. Mm.
Yeah, no, the story that always keeps popping into my head about this is Gordon Bunshaft and him building his own house. And, his wife apparently liked to do crafts and loved to paint rocks with little decorative designs. And of course, he wanted to build himself a showpiece for his mastery of, rough, brutalist architecture. And so his poor wife got some craft room tucked away in a back corner that she had to do her craft in and wasn't allowed to touch anything in the rest of the house. And I definitely did not want to be that person. So we worked well together because she's very much a designer also, not working in architecture, but she had a lot of input into the interior of the house and what it felt like. And I did not want to be the dictator of it has to be this way and be a white minimalist box, so the interior is a great blend of our tastes, and I think it works really well. It's comfortable for both of us, so I hope she's as happy with it as I am.
I'm going to interview her,
That would be great.
I do think that like, with all this is a path and it is a journey and it's speaks to your ability, A, for you and your wife to work together, but beyond that, it speaks to your ability of how you work with clients. And so I want you now to take us. We're on tour. So if you're listening to
Okay.
this podcast and you are going on the homes tour, and even if you're not, have a look at this home. But if you're listening to this podcast, you're going on the homes tour, and it's the next house you're going to go to. You shouldn't really put YouTube up in your car, but that's up to you. We're gonna we're gonna share some photos, and I'm gonna get Scott to take us from this little gravel alley and walk us in, kind of, because we're not going to end up parking in the street. So
No,
we're going to end up parking in a street
right.
somewhere, and then walking through the alley to get to your home. Yeah.
Well, luckily the alley is only 1 block long, and so you can park at either end. And there's actually a big parking lot for a public park that's at one end of the alley that's perfect for the home store. And so you'll park there, and we'll put some signs out so people can actually find the alley, which a lot of people can't find it because it's a very tiny entrance to this alley. So you walk down this gravel alley, and we are right in the middle, halfway down. So it's really a roughly paved thing that we keep calling the city to re-gravel it now and then, but they don't respond. So, but what you see when you approach it as you walk
Well,
along,
let me share some photos. We'll share
oh, sure.
the site plan, but then also I'll share some photos. I'll start with the alley, and
Yeah, so as you're walking down the alley, there are a number of wooden fences along there. You'll pass one of the wooden fences, and you'll suddenly see the front of the house. And the front of the house is really a blank canvas, more or less, of corrugated Cor-Ten steel. And that corrugated Cor-Ten steel, the rust-colored stuff, it's for any listeners who don't know what Cor-Ten steel is, it's steel you put up. It's silver when you put it up, like raw steel, and it rusts in a very short amount of time to a certain depth of patina, and then it stops. So you end up with this permanent red rust, beautiful
mm,
color that I really love. But as you can see on the photo here, the front is to the left, that black area is the front door. To the right is a garage door, and between them is an accent panel, let's say. And we had a lot of ideas of what to do with that accent panel. We wanted to sell it as ad space. So we had designs for like a lawyer's ad to be put up there. We had different art ideas. And what we ended up with was a glass, Italian-made glass Bisazza tile that
beautiful.
really shines and reflects the sun beautifully there. And I just love the combo of colors of the rust,
Mm.
the green, and the black. The front yard,
So
oh, go
in
ahead.
orientation, sorry, I was going to say in orientation, this front piece is facing which way?
It's facing the alley. So it's facing south.
And it's facing south, right? So
Yeah.
this is your main sun is pouring in on this side.
That's right. It's sort of south southwest. So in Austin, you definitely don't want that blinding sunlight for
Hmm.
most of the
Hmm.
afternoon. So we planted the front with we it's really just cactus and gravel. And so those cactus are spineless prickly pear, and eventually they'll get to about 6 feet high. So it'll be just a giant mass of cactus there. We actually love it and baby it as it's growing.
It
And
it's
then the rest
got
of it, oh, go
sorry, I
ahead.
was going to say it's got really beautiful, sort of almost that mid-century fortress kind of front feel, and then the formalities of it. But it's got the rusted steel,
Yeah.
the Cor-Ten, and then those two colors, the dark and the green, popping it all out. And it's nestled down kind of in the trees. I get why you call it stealth house because
Yeah,
of the
you
way it's nestled in.
It
It's
is hard
really
to
cool.
find.
Yeah.
It is, and yeah, it's got a nice knife edge steel detail around that whole
Yeah.
entry aperture too. That keeps the rain off when you're just stepping out.
Yeah.
If you were to walk around the rest of the house, it's all just this same Cor-Ten steel all the way around all the other sides. So there are no windows or anything. There are just two hidden doors that are fire exit doors, but they're permanently locked from the outside. So.
Right. So if somebody wants to do this, you can walk right around the house, and it's basically the setbacks are
It
going to
is.
be what it is. Yeah,
It
cool.
is that the massing of the house was I took the property, took the setbacks, and then just extruded the rest of the property fully. So
Hmm.
it's to the boundaries of where it could be built, and then carved out the interior to meet the maximum square footage that you're allowed. You're allowed 1,100 at the time. You were allowed 1,100 square foot maximum for an ADU like this, not
Hmm.
counting the garage.
And
and
you
that's where we're at. We're at to the inch.
and you didn't have, I love that. I love it right down to the last bit.
It
You
is,
you didn't have any protected trees or anything on the site. It
no,
was like
no,
it
the
was a
site was
green
a
field.
blank canvas. It
Yeah.
was flat and full of dirt.
Yeah, cool. So we're going to walk up to this home like this, and we're going to come down probably the driveway, I'm
Yep.
imagining, and we're going to come down, and as we come down, there's that beautiful green Besatzia wall, which is, yeah, but ideally, depending on what time of the day you come, will be how shiny it really is.
Yeah, it's got gold flecks in it, and it really does reflect the sun different at different times of day. And for pedestrians, that little black path leading up is
Yep.
a different type of gravel, and that's sort of the entry, the official entry to if you're walking up to the house. I think for the tour, they're going to set up the check-in tent and all that in the driveway. So
I
because there's not
imagine so.
space.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we'll come down and we'll turn to our left. And as we turn to our left, we'll sort of head towards the front door, nicely
Right.
hidden. Okay, cool.
So the front door is the next shot. It took a lot of detailing here because front doors typically open in, and that's what we wanted here. But normally, what you end up with is a door stop, and the door sits at the back
Mm,
side of that. So when
mm.
it's closed, you have a little bit of a recess there. We designed a door that is flush when it's closed, which took a bit of engineering to do. So it's a little hard to see in this photo, but it's all just a
Yeah,
flush few panels of steel with then a single big long pull.
I
And
love
so
it.
it's very minimal looking when it's closed.
So that would be a really good point. Like when you're about to go in the house, pause outside, take in those tiles, especially as you come up to the house, depending on whether you've come from which end of the alley. But, stand back and get a view of it because those tiles could be just absolutely magical depending on
Yeah,
the
it's in
time
the
of
in
the
the late
day.
afternoon is when they shine the most. That's when you get the sun coming
Yeah,
around.
right. So don't
So
everybody go in the late afternoon though.
yeah.
And then check out the store detail because again, it's a beautiful detail. It's like and not what you would see in every home. So it's these beautiful little touches, the nuances of the house that make it magic.
Yeah,
Um,
there are a lot of little things through here, and be sure not to trample the cactus. Those are those are our babies.
keep off the cactus. Yeah.
So this is a little bit after you walk into the house, and plan wise, you enter this small entry vestibule that has the kitchen directly off of it. We're a little further into the house at this point, and we'll go back and see the kitchen later. But this is sort of where the house opens up after your
And this is
the
our
kitchen.
two courtyards.
These are the two courtyards. So the one on the left you're seeing there is the long, narrow, linear one, and that one has the Cor-Ten at the back as well. But it's all got this bamboo growing in it, and the bamboo takes a while to get established and get to
Mhm.
its maximum height, which will be about 8 feet for this species. So it'll eventually be filled with green, that view. But we kind of like it now where it's green with the rust color behind.
Yeah.
And then on the right is you're starting to see the edge of the olive tree in the
Hmm.
main courtyard.
Hmm.
Um, we a number of small details here. The glass that you see at the right that's framing the courtyard and the other side, you can buy insulated glass units just as is with no framing system, and they're fairly inexpensive, but the inexpensive ones only come up to 9 feet high. What we did was we bought 9 foot units here to save on the cost and set the ceiling height at 9 feet for that reason. Now 9 feet is a little bit on the low side for a large
Hmm.
house. Given that this is only 1,100 square feet, it feels just right. It brings the ceiling down, and especially since the space of the living room opens up on either side so much, it really participates in the feeling of the living room. It feels very open and airy, even though it's not a big space.
But your glass is going from the floor to the ceiling, which
From
is
floor to
making,
ceiling.
yeah,
That's right.
which makes the difference. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and behind the couch, it doesn't go to the floor. It goes to, you
Yeah.
can kind of
Sure.
see it there. It's
Just
a little
over
bit
on
of
the
a ledge.
side. Yeah.
But that was designed around that particular couch. So the back, it meets exactly with that ledge height.
I did
Um,
notice that little detail when I looked
yep.
at your photo, but that's something for people who are on the tour to have a look when you're in the living room. Just it is designed around that ledge height so that you don't get multiple lines, so your eyes jumping around. It becomes
Right.
very. I think when you're in a small, tight space, or not tight, but smaller space like this, one of the things is creating the viewpoints, but beyond creating the viewpoints is getting rid of the disturbance. getting
Right.
rid of what you might have in a bigger space where there's multiple pieces going on. Here it simplifies right down. It's pretty. It's like really, really pretty. The back wall that has that beautiful piece of art on. What's that finished in?
Yeah, that's an interesting, this house was pretty inexpensively built.
You
And
didn't tell your wife that though.
yeah, but we did spend money on a few finish items that we really cared about. One was that Basata tile that you see in front, and that
Uh-huh.
also repeats in the bathrooms. But another one is this wallpaper, which is it's a silver looking metallic backing, but
Uh-huh.
then it's got woven strips of wood in it. So it's a wood and metal wallpaper that's really unusual. That we only
Yep.
found one company that made it, and it was a pain to get shipped here from Belgium, but it was worth it. It really makes the house and sort of we tried to use as little painted sheetrock throughout the house as possible.
Mhm.
It still does remain in certain areas where it's kind of a backdrop, but we really love texture on all the walls.
I think it adds an awful lot. And as I went through these photos, that Rob took, I go, oh wow, it keeps drawing my eye to that paper. So I'm really keen for, to hear feedback from people who go and see the home as to what happens with that paper, how it draws them in, because it certainly
Yeah.
does it in the photographs. I'm yet to see the house in real as well. Here's the
Okay.
olive tree, man.
Yep, there's the courtyard. And as you can see, we use the same Cor-Ten steel wrapping around.
Hmm.
There's one little detail that is super important to us too, is that the exterior material, the Cor-Ten steel, doesn't just stop at the windows and become something else on the inside. You can see to the left here, we got
Right
some
there.
plate steel of that same Cor-Ten and wrapped it to the interior of the house too. So it looks like that wall kind of slices into the house a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a very small detail, but it really adds a lot to the sort of expansion of space of the sort of blurring of inside and outside. It
It,
really makes a difference.
it almost removes it as being a window, doesn't it? Like it.
It does in some sense, especially
Yeah.
with the detailing where, the glass is actually sunk into the ceiling and into the
Mhm.
floor. And the only dividers you get are these minimal pieces between it. Probably the biggest question we get asked here is like, why didn't you make these sliding doors that open up to the outside? Um,
So
and
the
that is
answer
something.
is,
The answer is it was all about also not designing for resale. It's like both my wife and I, basically in Austin, you get 4 nice days per year. And the rest of the time, it's either too hot or freezing cold. It's one of the two, and humid. So we like the idea of the windows being for view and really
Mhm.
bringing that outside in, but we don't feel the need to open them and actually go outside. First off, it adds a lot of chunkiness to the Windows system when you do that. You have even if you have a very thin line system, which are very expensive, it adds, multiple track widths that have to go
Mhm.
in the ceiling and the floor. You have locking hardware and all this kind of stuff. Here we were able to get rid of all of that. So the strips you see between the window, it really is a silicone joint that's been covered with
Yeah.
aluminum, and it's as thin as you can get. So it creates a very precise looking and very minimal detail, and we just love looking out. It's a really magical at night when we
And
did
it's lit.
a lot of work with landscape lighting. So at night that you just turn on the courtyards, you can leave all the other lights in the house off and it just glows from the outside. So
Beautiful. So
yeah,
this
we love it.
view, this view here, we've got our kitchen on the right,
That's right.
and then on the left, what do we
On the
got?
left is the sort of a primary suite. So
Okay,
there's
cool.
actually a sliding pocket door that goes in that closes against that rust-colored piece there. And then the primary suite is just a bathroom, closet, and bedroom, and that can be closed off if guests are in the house
Yeah,
and
cool.
act as its own private little apartment almost.
Nice, nice. It's beautiful looking down here. How old was the olive tree, and where did you get it?
We, yeah, it was tiny. It fit. You're not going to believe it, but you can't see the opening, but there's a 3 foot opening between the garage and to the right
Hmm.
there at the very edge. The tree fit through that opening when we brought it in. It was tiny,
Yeah,
and
wow.
in one year, it's grown tremendously. And these olives can, at least theoretically, live to 4,000 years old. Now, whether
Yeah.
Austin will even be here in 4,000 years, who knows? But there's the possibility.
Oh, look, they're very on trend everywhere in the world at the moment, and I know places I've been to recently where the olive tree is, they're going, well, that's 200 years old or whatever, and we're planting them here on the where I live on the Sunshine Coast, and it's like a hot, humid climate. You think Austin's humid. We're more humid than that. We're more like Florida. And I don't see them thriving quite like this one's thriving.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, this one is in olive trees don't grow well in Austin, and they've tried doing olive plantations in the past. And the problem is the winters. It
yeah,
doesn't stay temperate during the winter. It actually gets cold. You have freezes, everything else.
yeah.
This one is in a microclimate, really. It's protected really well. And actually for days when we're planning to have heavy frost, we had a plastic tarp design that actually rolls across the entire opening of that courtyard. It's like a tent. It's got a support system in the middle that goes up, a retractable pole, and then so you can just turn it into more or less an interior space. So
Awesome.
we also baby that tree.
Those and the cactuses, do not
There's a
mess
lot
with
of
them.
plant, a lot of landscape babying here going on. It
Exactly.
produces olives though. It sprouts olive. It did even last year
Oh,
when it was
sorry,
new.
that skipped
Oops.
through there. Yeah, right. So this
So
is
then,
what we
yeah,
could
this is
see in
just
the
turned a
corner
little
there.
bit.
Yeah.
And looking back into the kitchen that leads from the entry. So, it's not like an axial open space with the kitchen, dining, living
Hmm.
all in one axial. It shifts around this courtyard, which we think lets a lot more light in, and especially given that it's closed. You can see the kitchen, it's
Yeah.
small, but we did some intriguing things that I think we'll show on the tour. There's no pantry, but the ends of the kitchen, you see one that they're at the right near the entry door, and at the other
Yeah.
end open up, and that's a whole shelving all the way floor to ceiling, and that becomes our pantry. So you're getting rid of the circulation space in the pantry, splitting it, and putting it at the ends of the kitchen to act as storage.
Awesome.
Also
And
above, from the ceiling all the way down to where the opening starts, is all storage as well. Lots of dead storage up there for things you don't use so much. And then we popped out, we don't have a formal dining room, so we have a restaurant style booth there.
cool.
Seats 4 people,
In
and
here.
that's plenty for us. We don't do that much large entertaining. We have had a party for 30 people, and it worked just fine for that. But typically we would go out if we wanted to do something that large. So it's great for having another couple over and dining, and
Well,
we do.
a booth is like just such a wonderful kind of space because it creates intimacy just by the fact of you're snugged into it, and that
Yeah.
you have to communicate to move around in it. It has all those wonderful things. It's like being in a restaurant, and it has
Yeah.
its own environment. It's a bit like having the microclimate in the courtyard. You've got the microclimate when you've got a booth, and you
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
shift, you transition mentally. I love that. I used to have a home with a booth, dining in the kitchen, and it didn't have a kitchen bench you could sit at. And so it meant that everybody hung in the booth, which was kind of just like this off the side of the kitchen. And it really created this amazing, we used to call it being a Kiwi, the fish and chip shop. So we used to say, well, let's eat in the fish and chip shop, and we'd cram guests in there with us as well,
Yeah.
because it creates such a different feeling. And I
Well,
would sit in there as well.
I grew up in a house that had a booth in the kitchen, and I lo always loved it. It was just the most comforting thing to me. So I wanted to recreate that here. So yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. I love that play of it there. You can see it really well. You can see the booth and the back of the kitchen. Yeah,
And
that's
again,
cool.
storage, the underside of those booth seats are solid, packed full of,
Yeah, right.
stuff.
They're the
And
pantry. They're more pantry.
yeah, so it's a tiny house, but it does have a lot of storage, just built in various places around there. So then the left side of the kitchen, that door there goes out to the garage, and
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's your way in from the garage.
that's the way in from the garage.
That's
Right.
that's the, your entry to the house
Yep.
as
Yep.
such.
That's the one we use most often.
Yeah,
So
cool.
yeah, again, small, but plenty
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. It's really lovely. Really, really lovely. And there's that wallpaper again. And then this view that we've got here, tell me about this. So
Yeah,
we've
this is the primary bedroom. So we're a little bit jumping around here, but you come back in, you come through that sliding door. If you look to the left, what you're seeing here down at the end of the hallway there is the shower
yeah,
in the bathroom. So the shower is glass on the front and glass towards the courtyard. So you always have natural light pouring into that shower.
brilliant.
It's really magical to take a shower in them in the morning. There's a behind that wallpaper wall is the closet, the main
Yeah.
closet, and then we're in the bedroom here. And a few other things. It's like I said, it's a mixture of super cheap and nice stuff. That cabinet unit to the right is just straight off the shelf IKEA. We did a stack, but we customized it by putting some of that wallpaper at the back of
Hmm.
each of those cabinets, so it continues that wall surface around. And we have some
Tie,
glassware we've
ti-
collected.
yeah, ties it all together so beautifully, like really,
It,
really beautifully. I
yeah,
think
it feels nice. There are a
I
few
like,
pieces. Go back to that slide. So a few
sorry.
pieces to look for that we'll have installed by the time the tour comes. You notice that the Cor-Ten steel here does not turn into the jam at the
Into
side
here.
like it does in the
Yep.
other rooms. Those are being fabricated right now, so they're not in yet.
Oh, okay,
They will go in
cool.
there too. So it'll really look like the steel turns back into the house, and then there's just these dark gray panels between the edges of the steel.
Yeah, nice. And with this, do you have any blinds? Do you have any, like, what do you do for light control?
Yeah, the only blinds in the house are the ones
Is
in the
that one there?
bedroom.
Yeah,
These two, yeah, it is,
yeah,
and they're automatic blinds. And we only do it because I am a bad sleeper, and even moonlight comes into the house enough that you need some sort of screening there.
yeah.
So that's why we put them down.
I think something changes also when you have something that comes down, you actually feel a bit more tucked away in your cave for the night. You know, it's a
Yeah,
bit more secure, even though it's all totally psychological. It
yep.
it it shifts it, like I think that you kind of get to enclose yourself and it gives more sense of security.
And what you're not seeing, and we didn't take a photo from this angle, is behind you in the other shot. Behind the bed is an entire wall that is just drapery, floor to ceiling,
Oh,
and
so that softens it
behind
right up.
behind that wall is for acoustical purposes, but it's also behind that wall is where your fire exit door is. So if something really bad happens, you just pull the drapery aside and you go right straight outside via a normal steel door.
You don't
And
have to do the 34 floors down, and wait in
you
the
don't have to
street
crawl out
while
a
the
window
yeah,
or anything like that.
exactly.
So you just walk out a door. It's
How
easy.
cool. That
Yeah.
was that part of the planning regulations?
Of course, yeah, you have to have some way to get out of bedrooms, in case of fire. So it's
Yeah.
usually via a window that has an operable,
Hmm.
pane of sash of a certain size. But here we just did doors.
Yeah. Cool.
And
And
as you go into the bathroom, you can see again we have the Satsa tile again, the glass tile, a different color here that wraps through the bathroom and into the shower and creates a nice dark aperture
yeah.
as you come in.
But that really pulls your eye to the outside as well, so it feels more like you're showering in the garden.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. And some more off-the-shelf ideas. That mirror on the left is actually two medicine cabinets that were Home Depot medicine cabinets bought, put in, and then we had a custom walnut frame that matched a lot of the other walnut material in the house put around them, and it looks like something custom, even though it's more or less off-the-shelf parts.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful palette of colors because that when we go, looking like this, we get all that rust with its kind of texture and its light because of the corrugation and the way it shifts. You're getting all that's coming into the house constantly, and the house is constantly feeling like it's like you said, the indoor and outdoor is totally blurred. It's yeah, really fabulous, really, really beautiful contrasts.
Thank you.
It's and simple, not complex. Yeah, what a great looking home. Well, for those of you who are coming on tour, and any of you who are listening who aren't coming on tour, get onto the YouTube channel, have a look at the home. It's absolutely stunning, and I can't believe how much you can pack into a well thought out space, and then keeping it really simple. You did one ceiling height all the way through.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
was there any temptation to vary that or periscope it or do any other
It's such a
crazy
small
stuff?
space. No, honestly, there was so much going on with, bleeding out the windows and everything else. That's why, a lot of houses that were built in the 60s and 70s, 8 feet was your standard ceiling height
Yeah.
for a builder house back then, which sounds ridiculous and crazy. But you look at a lot of the case study houses that were done,
Hmm.
earlier, a little bit earlier on, they all have fairly low ceilings, but it's the fact that it's sort of creates a horizontal space that then expands outside so much
Mm.
because you have so much glass. It creates a great feel to me. I think a lot of ceiling heights are overinflated now in houses, typically. You come to people that have expectations of, 30-foot ceilings, and it's like, okay, you don't, first of all, it's very energy inefficient and it doesn't spatially do much unless it's extremely well,
Yeah,
modulated.
yeah.
So here I just, part of it was cost as well, and
Hmm.
part of it is the fact that there's a solar array up there that fills the entire roof.
Roof.
So,
Right.
so we, yeah, so yeah, it's not anything we miss here. You don't need to put every kind of sectional, trick in the book in a tiny house like this.
Yeah, I think that it's what's really fabulous about it is that point that you made is like, whilst it may be not a huge ceiling height, our standard in Australia is 2,400, which is 2.4 meters, and that is an 8 foot ceiling. That's an eight
Right,
foot ceiling. That's what the building code says we've got to do in any
right,
bedroom or anything like that. And then you look at this and you go, we're only a foot above that. And
right.
so that means that we're at what we would call 2550. And that there is high enough. But especially when you take that glass and you take the framing out of the top of that glass. And so for people who are in the home, that framing gone from the top of the glass, so the glass actually feels like it's a hole in the wall.
Right.
That just shifts it so you're between two horizontal planes rather than having everything wrapping down or wrapping up to
Well,
hold you in
that
the space.
any visitors I ever have, I ask them to visualize that these glass, glass windows were actually wall surfaces with punched glass, with punched windows in them.
Yeah.
And if you can visualize that mentally, you realize, oh, this is a tiny space. It would be it would be really unpleasant to be in it if it was that small. But the fact that it goes floor to ceiling makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's the genius of architecture. I love it. Scott, absolutely brilliant. Can't wait to be in the
Oh, thank
home.
you.
And I think
And
it's like there's a feel about it that I can get just from that. And that especially with the outside entry, they're coming up the gravel and not transitioning off gravel. We will because we'll walk down the driveway, but you went gravel onto gravel as well. So it's almost like taking that neighborhood scape that already exists and continuing it, but formalizing it. It suddenly all comes together and it's like, okay, this isn't by just accident. This is all now formalized and you're coming into the space and transitioning into that formal zone. And then the discovery of the front door as well. I love that little, you've got to discover it. And so
yeah,
it's a bit playful. And then once you come in, I don't, when I looked at the photos first, I didn't realize there were no exterior windows because of the way you've set up the courtyards. And
right.
I think, again, that's really magical the way it's actually got no exterior windows, but everything in there focuses you into a viewpoint. It's beautiful,
Well,
really
thank you. I
beautiful.
hope people can come on the tour and enjoy it. So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, especially when, like this is, as you said, it's like a small home that you've done, where you do plenty of large homes as well. I know your work, and there's large homes that you do. So it's about the design thinking here, and it's about the maximization of space and the maximization of value, what you can get out of a space, and also how you can make it the economy of that space work physically and dollar wise.
Right.
I mean, I
Well,
think
that's what
that's
I think we enjoy the most on no matter what the size of the house is thinking about program and what do you really need. Like a lot of people, like you said at the beginning of this, you wanted to know what the program of the house was or
yeah.
the brief. And a lot of people come with pre-existing ideas of we need X number of bedrooms, we need this living room, we need a dining. Sometimes you don't need those things you think you might need, and sometimes other kinds of spaces will work better. So I love juggling program around and seeing what really is necessary and what's not. The other thing is like space sizes. It's great to walk through your house and realize how much of that any room you actually inhabit at any one time. Like where do your feet land in that room? And a lot of times these rooms have places where you never walk. There,
Mhm.
you just never go. And
Mhm.
uh, I love just, cutting that part away and leaving the places you actually need to be enclosed and go into. The rest can go back outside. So
Yeah,
yeah.
And doesn't end up in the built structure or the built cost.
Right, right.
That-
Or heating and cooling costs and all that
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. I think that all those elements, again, is what great architecture is about. And building bigger isn't the answer. Building smaller where we can use the energy efficiency and use the brilliance of great design to create mood and energy and the feel of a place. I think that's really fabulous. I can't wait
Yeah.
to go to it. Looking forward
All
to
right.
it. I want to sit in
Well,
the booth.
okay. Well, you're welcome anytime. And
Cheeseburgers in the booth, I'm thinking. Yeah.
okay. Well,
Cool,
thanks for
man.
the interview. It was fun.
Yeah, we'll catch up very soon.
Okay, take care.
Take care. So I hope you've really enjoyed that. And if you'd like to stick around for about another 5 or 10 minutes, you can hear what Rob Gomez, the photographer who took the photos of all these homes, has to say about this particular home. And he's joined by Ingrid Spencer, the director of the AIA Austin, and their comments are really fascinating how they viewed these homes, much like the public would. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed. Take care. Stealth House. Now, Stealth House, it's an ADU, correct? And the
Is
architect's own home.
that's right.
Take me on the journey.
Yeah. So Specht Novak, Scott Specht is an architect with a mind outside of any box I've ever known. He can come up with some very interesting things, and this house is one of those very interesting cases. Um, this house is the kind of house you could pick up and put in the most horrendous site ever. Like it could go anywhere because all of the living is done inside. It is all protected. Um, it's very fascinating, but it doesn't feel like you're not part of the neighborhood or you're outside. So there's no windows on the outside of this house.
So, no windows at all. Like we're completely enclosed.
It is completely enclosed, but when you go inside, it's full of light because of these interior courtyards.
Yeah, wow.
Quite remarkable. I think it's 1,200 square feet. Does that sound right, Rob?
I think so, yeah. I think it's 1,200.
Yeah. So it's not huge by any means, but it's the kind of house that could be in an alley, which it is. So it could be in a site that's not really habitable, I guess is the word.
Yeah,
You
right.
could put this on Mars and it would be great. And I think that's the point. Scott was trying to design a real beautiful home that could go in a place where it's not a beautiful site.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to, it's not reacting to its site necessarily. It's creating its own environment.
It really is creating its own environment,
Yeah,
but
cool.
also reacting to its site, if
So,
you will.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like it's in context to what's surrounding it. So Rob, this photo here, obviously of the alley. Tell me
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah, so this was sort of the best contextual shot, I guess, to really show, because you have the very, architectural, very geometrical 1 point perspective where you see the sort of full shape of it. But if you only see that, you kind of miss where this house is located, sort of geographically, and specifically in this case, in an alley. So this shot was sort of intended to show, obviously the front of the house, but also where it sits and where it could sit, I guess, kind of give that idea, as Ingrid was saying, of you can kind of place this house anywhere, really, which this, again, another trend of the homes of that are the actual architects that live in there. And so I got to spend all day with Scott and his wife again, and kind of see them again interacting in this space. 1,200 square feet isn't, a massive house like some of the other ones we'll see, but in a way it felt very, very sort of, quiet, very intimate. I would be shooting and I could, hear how they live. They're, working separately there, but kind of chatting to each other. Either, from the kitchen to the bedroom, you can kind of hear everything throughout the space. And being able to chat with Scott a little bit, he also told me, I think that he had intended this house to be like a blueprint design to replicate. I think he had told me something like he had submitted it to this place that would offer this design to purchase, just to be able to, build this house if you want, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But the next photo here, which again is like another one of there are so many sort of highlights, selling points, I guess you'd say, of this house. And this main view, there are several others. I picked this one just because I feel like it's such a cool part of the house. It's like the one spot where you are interacting with nature in some capacity, and where you get sort of the full head-on view of this little courtyard with the olive tree, where it's like, I guess like it's a very interesting, I don't know, it's rare that I'll see like, I guess something I'd never really seen before in a house, and this sort of like almost museum like you can get out there, but it's not intended to really, there's not a door to just kind of, step out. It's really more of
it's letting it into the home as opposed to you going out to it.
Right.
Yeah, it's so interesting the way Scott talks about it. He's just really honest. People ask, like, why didn't you make this a sliding door? And he's like, I don't want to go outside. It's 100 degrees. Why would I want to go outside? And I'm kind of like, yeah, he's right.
Also, you would lose some parts of with structure if you made those all slide, and it wouldn't be the same, that's for sure.
And it would be more expensive. This house was really a kind of a case study in really inexpensive materials and just careful detailing and architecture. But there's a full solar array on the roof, and it's very fireproof. So it really is a house for the apocalypse. When zombies are outside, this is the house you want to be in.
We all go to Scott's place when the zombies arrive.
That's right.
What else have you got, Rob?
The last one I just picked is just the sort of main view here of the kitchen, which I thought was also a very cool just design. Everything about this house was like very slick and very like just kind of just sharp, sort of even with like with Ingrid was saying with the doors, not having the sliding doors just is a obviously very intentional choice by Scott, because everything is just clean and kind of perfect in that way, with just having the full floor to ceiling glass there. But the kitchen, it just I don't know what it was but I just really like the design. You have like the island, where you can eat there, but you also, since obviously it's a small space, they don't have like a full dining room. But again, how they live, it's just the two of them, so they have like this little booth there for their meals if they want to, and just kind of how it all plays together. I thought it was like a really, really cool space.
I love the booth. Like, yeah, the booth to me just creates this whole new room, of which is quite intimate, and it's a transition, yet you don't leave the other space. And I can see from the photo, in the booth, you're looking into the courtyard as
Yeah.
well. And I love the two pieces of sort of the working spaces of the kitchen being in white, and sort of framing those out, being the big front bench and then the back working space, just holding on to the interior that way so that they're very, again, separated and creating contrast and texture in the space. It's really fabulous. You can imagine kicking back in that booth, even just if it's one of you while the other one's cooking,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hanging out and, having chats and yeah, like it's beautiful. Different from sitting on the stools that
Right.
are kind of leaning you into the kitchen. In the booth, you're in the kitchen. It,
Yeah.
it's sort of, it kind of harks back to simpler times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe also, those going on dates and going out to diners and things like that, where booths were restaurants
Yeah.
and stuff before the days when everybody ate out all the time. It was probably like a date or a treat or whatever to have a booth. I think it's really cool, really really cool, and
Yeah.
typical of Specht Novak's architecture. It is clean and it's deliberate and it's not fussy. But it's got texture and warmth and depth all the way through it. And you were saying, Ingrid, it's fireproof.
Yeah. Hmm.
These kind
It
of
is.
thing, baked in features that is very much, Scott's design mind. And as you say again, he has that design mind that isn't in a box, yet this is what he does when he builds a box. It's great. Really, really lovely. I think an exciting house to go to. How many people will be able to fit into it at any one time on the tour?
We might have people waiting in line to go through this one because it's not that
We
big.
might need a coffee cart in the driveway so that people can buy a coffee
We might.
while they're waiting. Yeah. Because I think, again, like architecturally, it's going to be really special to come to. And, but, maybe 30, 40 people or something is going to fill it up pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Stealth House. Thank you for tuning into our conversation. I hope it left you both informed and inspired. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And please don't hesitate to share your design thoughts with me. It's always a joy to hear from you. If you're like me and crave a deeper dive into design thinking, coupled with a love for travel and adventure, consider one of my architectural adventures. Join me and some of my wonderful design friends and embark on a journey of a lifetime. Apply for an unforgettable design experience at adrianramsey.com. With our clients spanning the globe, I firmly believe behind every great project are great people. If you're a great person and seeking to turn your dream into a reality, I'd be honored to design your home with you. Why not join the ranks of our exceptional clients and let's make your heart sing? Reach out to me at studio@ardesignhouse.com. That's studio@ardesignhouse.com, and let's get a conversation going and make your heart sing.